Close your eyes, exhale, feel your body relax, and let go of whatever you're carrying today.
Well, I'm letting go of the worry that I wouldn't get my new contacts in time for this class. I got them delivered free from 1-800-CONTACTS. Oh my gosh, they're so fast.
And breathe.
Oh, sorry. I almost couldn't breathe when I saw the discount they gave me on my first order. Oh, sorry. Namaste.
Visit 1-800-CONTACTS.com today to save on your first order.
1-800-CONTACTS.
Welcome to a special series of Art Pays Me interviews with the winners of the 2025 Creative Nova Scotia Awards. Presented annually by Arts Nova Scotia and the Creative Nova Scotia Leadership Council, these awards celebrate artistic excellence across McMahon. Award categories are as follows: Creative Community Impact, Prix Grand-Pré, Established Artist, Emerging Artist, Black Artist, Indigenous Artist, and finally, the Portia White Prize, that is given to a person who has made outstanding and significant contributions to Nova Scotia's creative community over a sustained career. Much like the incredible woman that the award is named after. The winner will also choose a protege, an emerging artist or cultural organization that will also receive funding. Collectively, the awards are worth $75,000. Visit artsns.ca to nominate your favorite Nova Scotian artist or nominate yourself. This series would not be possible without the fantastic production work of Heist and Kiki Beats. So,
Hey.
thank you for welcoming us into your space, I guess you could call it this.
Our space, the community NASCAD film studio space.
It's amazing.
Lots of magic made here. I think I've shot 3 of my own films here, and the best thing about being somebody who teaches is that you can hire your best students.
Oh, yeah.
So I think like every single year in the summertime when they're done their school, and we pay them, don't worry. Art pays me, we pay them. And so I pay them to work on productions with me, and so we've built a lot of sets here. We work with actors like Corey Bowles in a few sets, and Jacinta Armstrong, and work with incredible actors, and it's really a way of students to kind of like get a real life experience of outside the classroom and kind of like what it is to be in the world of Solomon Nagler making a movie, and it's and really this space is transformed into the most fascinating places, and it's just the magic of movies, really.
Yeah. Love that. So let's take a rewind then. Let's go back to, you kind of mentioned your name, but what's your name, your pronouns, and your creative discipline?
I'm Solomon Nagler, he, him pronouns. So I guess, I don't know, I would say film in the expanded sense. So I'm a storyteller, and I like to make stories in a very different sort of way. Make stories that are leaning more towards poetry and abstraction, and then sort of like try to get stories that really, I would say, penetrate people's souls in a certain way through just really kind of questioning what narrative could be through just really intense impressionism and really intense images. I also, do installation work. So oftentimes I'll make film work that will be shown in galleries, public art spaces. I have, for a period of time, was interested in architecture and design and how we could kind of create projected images in public space that are a little bit uncanny.
Okay.
And so we did some work for the Toronto International Film Festival. We've done work other places in Canada where we built a mobile cinema, and we kind of put it around different places in the city during the festival, and people would just happen upon it and watch a movie. It was really strange and fun. And then I also recently have gotten more into the poetic side of my practice. I have a book that just came out of poetry and another one coming out next year, and I think it's all related. I think it's a big umbrella. I mean, being an alum of our school, that everything is just so, art is not one thing, it's a planet that just kind of turns and moves, and depending on the way the light shines through the clouds, it happens to be something, a film or a piece of design or a mural or an art, other types of artwork, and that's kind of the way art works. It's just this wonderful wholeness that everyone can share different angles.
I think before we started filming, I mentioned film as something I've been curious about and interested in, and I think that's partly why too, because once you start creating something and you realize, the core of this is that I'm trying to tell some kind of a story, then it's like, well, what if? What if it moves?
Exactly. What if the story is, but also what if the thing what's great about film, it's kind of like the curse and the dream of film, is that you have to have a community help you.
Yes.
And you have to have, a community of folks that have bought into an idea of making work that maybe is a little bit different than the way films are normally made.
Yeah.
So it's something that's a lot more community driven, something that's a bit more, different the way that we sort of like tell stories. And I, frankly, I wouldn't have been able, like I've made over, I think, almost 25 films. Not one of them would have been made if I didn't have friends and family and community. And what the most amazing thing about Nova Scotia when I came here 20 years ago, the first thing I did is I went to the film co-ops. And we have the most amazing artist-run centers in this city that are some of like the oldest artist-run centers in the entire country.
Really?
And they are so helpful, and they're so community-oriented, and they're so grassroots. And that's my jam. Like, it's always been my jam, is the grassroots is where the avant-garde comes from. The grassroots is where you can kind of sustain yourself.
Yes.
And that's how you sustain your soul, not even only your pocketbook. And, if it wasn't for AFCOOP, it wasn't for CFAT, if it wasn't for the students that kind of like agree to be tortured by me by working on my films, nothing would have been done. So really, it's my friends, family, colleagues, and because Nova Scotia has always been a little bit off the map, you know what I mean? We've always succeeded in that grassroots way of doing things. Like people call it the maritime make-do, and I love that because I'm from Winnipeg originally. I was born there, and when I came here, it's exactly what attracted me to being here. It's like you make work here out of necessity. You make stuff with your friends, and you make things on the cheap. And you just gotta do it, and it takes a lot of soul.
Yes,
like there's a lot of soul in this place, and I fell in love hard with this place, like really hard. And I'm like, this is totally, not just the fog and the stinky harbor back in the day when I moved here, but because back in the day they had, they still put the sewage in the harbor and they had the refinery. And I'm like, I love this place. It's like Winnipeg. It's amazing. But then, it's changed a lot.
Glowing seals?
Yeah, it's gone through it's like cleaned up the harbor a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's still got this, real kind of like grassroots, we're just going to make it work type mentality that I just find so inspiring.
So is there a person, place, or event that directed you toward this path?
Well, I don't know, I think that I've always been kind of like artistically minded. I think that, certain type of person I think is attracted to making art. I think that it could be that someone maybe understands a certain brokenness to things, and it's not that you want to fix it, you just want to find a mirror to understand the brokenness. And I'm not saying that all art has to be made through pain and suffering, but I think that there's an incompleteness that we try to fill ourselves up with art. And that's why when you're making work with the community, you can kind of heal together and make work together that creates a wonderful mirror to reflect your own journey in, even if it's not even your project, but you're collaborating on a project. So I think that I found art as a way to kind of like, almost complete me, but not quite, that always makes me want to further that completing process of the self. And I love that, and it's always been something that, your brand is art pays me, and I think there's also, you probably agree, art heals me, right? And I think that, working here in Nova Scotia with my collaborators and doing various projects with community groups to do free film training and inviting other people who haven't told stories before to be able to have that opportunity, it's a way of sort of way I've always understand filmmaking, of community-based, inviting folks in to participate, to learn from your process, and to share. And I think a lot of the incredible artists in this province are people that are very generous with their time and super approachable, which maybe you don't have in other centers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you don't have that pretension.
Yeah.
And here you have like, hey, you walk down on Maynard Street, like I know that writer.
You might see them.
Yeah, you see them.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, let's hang out and chat. Let's go grab a coffee. The best thing about when I moved here was learning about what maritime chit-chat was. And I didn't really know what that was coming from Manitoba, because in Manitoba, if you do that, you could kind of get in trouble, right? But here, it's like literally, you walk down the street and you go in to get a loaf of bread. It's going to take you 5 hours because everyone's inviting you into their homes. In fact, you don't make plans. The plans are made on the street.
Right.
And I feel like the art community is like that too. It's like people just like, hey, you're at a bar, let's talk, let's come up with some ideas, let's find a little bit of funding that we can scrap together thanks to the really generous arts funding we have here, and let's just kind of do something that is something that we're interested in, that tells a story about this place. So, yeah.
Yeah. So is there a project that holds a particular significance to you?
It depends on the day, I always kind of think about the next project, honestly, but I've learned so much from every project that I've done, and I like how each project informs the next one. So in every film that I do, there's always a taste of the film that I made before in it, even formally, structurally, sound-wise, in some sort of capacity. I think there's been projects that have been really challenging. And I feel like I learned a lot from that process. I feel like maybe I did things I wouldn't do again in some of those projects. But really, what makes me kind of shocked is when you do a project, especially that is so regional specific, that's made, like I shot a film in the Defun bunker before it became, I don't know what it's doing now, but and I literally had, the Defun bunker is this nuclear fallout bunker that's in Debert, and we were living in that bunker for about a week, 2 weeks. Wow. And that experience was ridiculous. And, you know, something came out of that film that was really like, you know, we kind of knew what we were doing. We kind of just kind of improvised with what was there. And yeah, so I think like that project was definitely a learning because it was my first feature film. And it was made purely out of the generosity of my collaborators, working with people like the brilliant Jeff Wheaton, who has now gone on to become probably one of the most important cinematographers in the region. And, you know, working with Lucas Pierce, who is also someone that is just so vibrant. And did you go to school with Lucas? Do you know Lucas at all? So Lucas is like a NASCAD brat, we call him. You know, his dad taught here, he went here. And he's worked on sound design for almost all of my films. And, you know, we just kind of made work with like people that were surrounding our immediate community. And we did it by the seat of our pants. And next thing you know, it's playing in, you know, it's playing in France, it's playing here, won an award. And it's just like, we made it with such meager means. And it was like, oh, well, people are interested in this weird story. That's really amazing. So I think I learned a lot from that project. I don't know if I want to necessarily go back into that world of feature filmmaking because it's pretty intense. But yeah, it was just something that I think really stuck with me a little bit. But there's been other projects that I've done with some incredible, I think I made a film called Days of Doubt, which is, you know, it's a film that's really maritime based. It's basically someone who lives, I would say, kind of, the location we shot is outside of Lunenburg. It's basically this kind of dilapidated, you know, I would say very 200-year-old house that this person is a shoemaker, and we used that set because the character was a shoemaker, and it's all about somebody whose partner is suffering from Alzheimer's, and it's all this kind of letting go of circumstances and this person having to be put in a home. But all these strange things happened during the making of that film that we kind of like just took advantage of, these almost chance encounters that made itself into the script. Such as this idea of a bird being stuck inside a house, which apparently in the Maritimes is a sign of death. It's kind of like this folklore that if the bird gets stuck in your house, that means a death occurs. We didn't know that, but a bird ended up being stuck in the house and we filmed it. And it's, you know, and it's really beautiful. And the actor that we worked with is a very, you know, well-known local actor. And we were just like, and then I found out, oh, the film is really about this thing that happened, that a bird ended up in a house. And the ability to capture those chance encounters, you know, during the process of filmmaking just made it also inspiring. So those stick out for sure, but I don't know, it's always like the project I'm working on that I kind of love, really, that really kind of like is of the moment. I like to pretend sometimes that I've never made, like whenever I make a new project, I like to pretend that I haven't made anything before in my life. Like, then you can always start fresh.
Right, and you're excited sort of thing.
Excited, and there's new things happening. And you also don't get caught up on whatever successes you may have had in the past. You think about, you're just an emerging artist like anyone else, and you're so curious. And that's why it's also really important always on set to bring in people that are learning about filmmaking. So my crews always have emerging technicians, emerging artists who are there because they will teach you something about how to look at a space and how to work in that space that seasoned veterans sometimes don't really bring to the equation. And I think that's just from my experience of being an instructor, the sort of like persistent enthusiasm and the sort of awe of the process that I love to have on set. And that's something that is just like so inspiring. So every single project I do, there's someone on set that has never even been on set before.
Would you say too, it's like sometimes they do the wrong thing and it ends up being, wait a minute, actually let's keep doing that.
100%. So here's a perfect example of that. I made a film with the great Corey Bowles, and we shot this on this very strange contraption that we have at NASCAT that was like back in the day when we first had cameras. There was something called I think it was a Ronin. So basically, it was something that used to spin, and you would spin it on a ground glass to make it look like it was film. So it would spin. So I hired one of my students, and you're supposed to turn it on. But my student forgot to turn it on.
Okay.
But then we look at the image, we're like, oh my God, it's like got this beautiful, rich, warped look to it that we then printed to 16 millimeter and looked incredible. Okay. And so I wasn't upset. I was like, wow, this is really interesting. Yeah. And the student's like, oh my God. I'm like, oh, this is super cool. Let's just work with it. And we just kind of like, you know, worked with that project, and it worked. And we ended up, that film had a really strange circumstances because like the feature, we filmed in places in Halifax that were on the verge of disappearing. Yeah. So there were like, for example, there was this place called I think it's called the Midtown Tavern that used to be where the convention center is. And it was like this
remember
dirty
that.
old bar that was about to be shut down. And we had it for the night. So with Corey and a bunch of people, we were like literally making like a dance film there. And then like for the feature film, we shot, in 2 places now, the Beef and Bunker, which I don't know what they're doing there now, and also this place called Bach Cafe, which was a Korean couple that literally had a wall of just like, stereo sound, and he would just blast Bach all day while you're eating homemade dumplings. So I'm like, I have to shoot in this space because it's going to disappear. So these are sort of like, I guess, places so specific to my practice where I'm living. And I think that since, the 20 years that I've been here, I think that these are such Nova Scotia films in a lot of ways, and specifically because the community helps me make it, and the funding I got was from the province, but also just like I think the spaces here inspire me, like just to the end, really.
So I was gonna ask you, that was my next question, like where do you get your inspiration? But I feel like you just kind of summed that up pretty well.
Yeah, I think like place for sure, but also I love reading. I love reading stories. I love history. I love reading about people that aren't really well known and how we can sort of amplify these stories a lot. I think it's just things that intrigue me are mysteries.
Yeah.
And the more I can make, and I don't try to reveal it, I try to kind of make it even more of a mystery so other people are as enthralled with it as I am.
Right. Cool. So, I mean, that said, decades and maybe centuries later, what would you want people to get from your work?
I don't know. I think that I would just want it to seem, alive, I guess, that maybe we're trying different things. Because really, everything that I do, I try to do in a way that is, I'm not saying it's like nothing never been done before, but I just want to try to experiment as much as possible with the process. But it would be nice if people knew the story behind making of the work, because so much of it depended on friendships and care and, mentorship and all these sort of things. But I kind of truly believe that, art in some way should just kind of hit you without having any sort of preconditions. We're all humans, we all have the same heart and soul, and there's a way that anybody can look at this work and it just kind of somehow makes you grow wings in the back of your neck and you start flying because something just hits you. You don't know why. You don't know why. It could be something that's like 100 years ago, you're reading a piece of poetry, reading something from the 17th century, but for some reason, a certain word or a certain image in some way just tells you everything you wanted to say about your own life but couldn't.
Right.
And I think that's the power of art. And so I would love for anybody to just dig up one of my books in Valley Village or find one of my films streaming online on some pirated website. And I would love that. It would make me so happy just for someone to say, hey, look at this totally weird film that I saw made in 2007 in Halifax, Nova Scotia at the Midtown Tavern, which doesn't exist anymore. I would love for people to kind of just be like, this is so strange and inspiring and interesting and mysterious, but with no preconditions. I want it to be raw, absolutely raw.
Right, time capsule.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, art is a time capsule in some ways, and you shouldn't really need a key to open it. It should just kind of hit you with raw emotions and feelings, and I think that's something that's just so powerful about everything that art can do.
Yeah, even if it's misinterpreted?
I don't know if there's such a thing as a misinterpretation. I think that art can be misused, but I don't think it can be misinterpreted. I think that the way that art, the power of it is that it can, literally almost act like a piece of clothing that you put on. It's like going into a Valley Village and finding a jacket that just somehow fits. And that's kind of what art should do. I think that my work anyways, I'm not speaking for anyone else, is that I want people to bring to it something that I wouldn't have expected.
Okay.
And I want to have a conversation. And I want people to just and when your work starts playing in other countries and other languages, it just baffles me. I've shown film in Asia and I had, in India and places like that. And it's really it's so remarkable when somebody who has no geographical connection, even historical context, they look at your work and they just want to talk to you about it. And that's the power of humanity. It's the power of art. It's like the great unifier, hopefully.
Yes.
So there's never such a thing as misinterpretation. There's misuse, there's exploitation, but there's no such thing as misinterpretation in my mind.
Yeah, well said, well said.
Yeah.
So outside of the materials in your environment, what is something that you actually can't do without in your environment when you're creating?
Oh, I think the support of my family.
Okay.
I mean, I think that my family and friends are so pivotal. And I would say even my students, frankly, having them interested and like, egging me on to like continue to make work. And it's like, even now, one of my best students who's doing super well, they're like, hey, when are you gonna get a new project off the ground? Let's do it. And, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so much work. But they're like, no, we're gonna do this project. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, we are gonna do this project. So I couldn't do, none of these projects would have existed without, number one, the kindness of my family, the patience of my family, and then the support and collaboration of my friends. And, as you kind of get older, and I'm midlife now, I guess, you see a lot of friends have passed on, and it's really heartbreaking. And, you kind of just, that like, in some senses, their soul of collaboration, what they kind of worked on in your projects is present. And they kind of, that relationship that we have was rebuilt every time that film was projected in the theater. Yeah. And, it's tough, but it's just the journey that we both went on. And these are our field notes to our lives.
Yeah. Amazing. So you mentioned something about the mirror sort of being held up, but also there's this idea, like with the film, you can't do it by yourself. So when you've got these other collaborators coming in and you're telling this deeply personal story and they're adding their own things to it, do you find it like helps you figure something else out about yourself?
Oh yeah, but I think a self is always something that's in the state of always emerging, right? So through this process of making work, you're kind of like the self for that moment. So if I'm collaborating with a cinematographer like Jeff Wheaton, who I work with on many projects, he knows me to the point that like he kind of knows without saying what I want to do. Okay. And even like sound designers like Lucas Pierce also knows exactly what I wanted to do without even saying any words. So I think that like we all trust each other in this process enough to be able to know that ego can get in the way of a project being organic and being new and exciting and moving your career forward. So there has to be a way that we understand that we're all like, the film itself is a body. It's like a child that you kind of like do your best to kind of provide for in a certain way, hopefully have enough funding, hopefully have enough gear, hopefully the sun comes out and you can film out in the forest. Sometimes you can't, But then what happens is it's like, boom, it's like all of a sudden your kid does things that you never would have expected they would do. And it's kind of like, that's kind of what an art project is. It just kind of has its own life and let it have its own life. And then you show it in public in various contexts and various cultures in other countries. And you're just kind of like, wow, I totally did not see anything of what you're talking about, but this is the film speaking to you in a certain way. And that's just so wonderful. And it's also like a lot of letting go, which I think for filmmakers, that's very difficult, But I love that process. I absolutely love that process. And I think that we all learn from each other. So there are people who've worked on my film, students that I've taught in my classrooms, that you can see a little bit of what we've gone through in making a film together in their projects. And I'm not saying that I'm responsible for any of their successes, but we definitely know that there's something that kind of like, there's some sort of inspiration that may have somehow, slipped its way into the way they're sort of visualizing certain things that we share in. And it's not mine, it's not theirs, it's just the art. Yeah. And the art is its own thing that will live forever. And no matter what you do in the world, you can't kill art. Art will always live, even in the worst, most horrific circumstances. Art will win. Yes. Always. Yeah.
So final question for me. I recently watched a film and I came away with a thought, and I won't lead you in the direction that my thought went into, but I would ask you, how important is score to you as a filmmaker?
I think it goes both ways. I think that I love working with musicians, and I've worked with so many local musicians here in Nova Scotia that are just so incredibly talented. Lucas Pierce scored a film that involved members of, the former, they're not together anymore, Gypsophilia, and Norman, who's from Symphony Nova Scotia, was doing cello. It was, I think that there's a way that, I love the way that John Cage conceptualizes score in film, is that they're like these parallel universes that somehow kind of touch and let go and touch and let go. They should never smother each other. They have to create a layer, like a good cake, and you bite into it and you taste the icing, then you taste the jam, and then you taste the cake itself, and all these layers participate in this whole feeling of it. So a score, in my opinion, is something that kind of brings some emotional elements of it that you wouldn't have expected. But that being said, I've also made films that have no score. My new project now is completely silent, because I think that there's a certain symphony of images projected in the theater on film that create its own type of visual music. So I think that, score is essential, And it's a wonderful collaboration to have somebody that can bring it to your project. And I think that it's all about respecting another artist's process and methodology, understanding that I'm presenting something to you to add to. I don't want this to be dictated by what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I want you to take from it what you can. And those are my favorite sort of scores for films, 100%. The most successful, in my opinion.
Great.
Yeah.
Solomon, thank you for having us in your
Yeah,
space.
well, welcome back home.
I can't seem to leave this place.
Exactly, NASCAR has a way of getting its talents in you.
Keeps me here.
Yeah, well,
Yes, it was great learning about what you do and
Cool.
your process and all that good
well,
stuff.
great talking with you, and the conversation will continue.
Yes, and congrats
Yeah.
on your award.
Thank you, I feel very humbled by it. It's wonderful, thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Art Pays Me. Hit me up on socials at Art Pays Me pretty much everywhere. And let me know what you think. I love connecting with listeners. If you're an artist looking for clothes that celebrate who we are as professional creative people, check out artpaysme.com. And don't forget, visit artsns.ca for more information about the Creative Nova Scotia Awards. Peace.
We see you, the one behind the camera, making sure the moments that matter get remembered. Shutterfly turns your memories into something that lasts, like photo books that tell your travel stories, photo blankets that feature your favorite cuddle buddies, or a canvas print that brings you back to the moment you said, I do. Big moments or everyday ones, Shutterfly makes it easy to keep them close.
Make something